just like all the times before this time. I'll make sure I'm not starting over. I'm starting again. It's already over. It ended back then. It's not starting over. It's starting again. It's not starting over. It's starting again.
It's starting again. That's what we're doing. It's just a reset. It's not a total, tear down and removal, and it's a reset to set again. That's what we're doing. So, welcome, happy Friday, 4th of July weekend, woohoo! And it's late in the afternoon because I set it to. I pre-recorded a program to go off at 10 o'clock this morning because I had to be somewhere. But as is often the case, it didn't go. And I got back late this afternoon and got on with the support people trying to figure out when am I going to learn how to use this? And the answer to that question is not anytime soon. Happy 4th of July weekend. Did I say that? Let's just stick with good things. Yeah, welcome. It's good to be with you. If you join me, just shout howdy to me now. Howdy. Hope you're planning a great weekend. Hope that you're safe and all your fingers are safe. And I could tell you some stories about my younger days and July 4th celebrations and M80s and eardrums burst and so on and so forth. But let's save those for another day. Welcome to Sacred Reset, where we look at the issues that have us, some of us, in a place where we need a reset. We need a sacred reset. We need to get in a realignment and get moving and let the momentum begin to move us in and with the will of God. So that's what we've been. Last week we did a little thing on heavy-handed leadership and how that can cause a believer to get stuck. When you're sitting under heavy-handed leadership, it wasn't meant to call anybody out in particular, but to recognize it in general that much of church leadership has resorted to a very heavy-handed approach, and the person who sits at the top rules in general with an unquestionable, accountable, and unauthentic leadership. And so that's a mouthful. And so we looked at that, and then and we because we spent several weeks before I showed a video. If you didn't watch that, I would love for you to watch it and let me know what you think. I would love to know. I would love to know. I would just love to know what you're thinking. And so anyway, and I know this is a weird time of the day, and many of you will, most of you will probably catch it at a later time, and I appreciate that. And if you like it, like it. If you like it, like it. And if you like it, share it. And if you share it, like and share it. Well, let's get going today. Based on yesterday, I thought my mind went back. I do a lot of this nowadays, because I do a lot of reflecting, and I think back on the things which are lovely and pure and of good report, things that have blessed me. I think about things that I would avoid going around again. But then, overall, I do a lot of reflecting and then how to help people, how to help people get unstuck. And years ago, and this what sparked this in me was a few weeks ago. Now it might be a few months now. A really good, sound, practical Bible teacher went on to glory, and her name was Marilyn Hickey. I used to listen to Marilyn Hickey when I was a young Christian, and I was working a job, and I would put on WYCA and listen to these like 15-minute radio programs, and nearly every ministry at that time had them. And Marilyn Hickey, I always appreciated, her very practical, real teaching. And she taught a lot about healing and hurts and victory over grief and so on. And I heard her do a teaching that I didn't know at the time, but that would prove to be very helpful and very important in my life. And she talked about how to deal with your hurts. And then she used, a memory device like most of us do. I do it a lot. Every preacher I think does it. And we use alliteration and anything to help put something into somebody's memory. And I remember Marilyn taught this lesson on how we deal with hurts, and in it she said most people nurse it, rehearse it, and then curse it. And I want to kind of talk about that today, and I give her full credit. So you realize I'm not trying to take her message, but I want to just expound on it and share with you why and how it's important to you as a believer, because we know that all of us have been or on our way to being hurt. I mean, you can't be around church much more than 15 minutes and you're going to be facing hurt. And in Marilyn's quote, what she said was, don't nurse your hurts, don't rehearse your hurts, don't curse because of your hurts, let God reverse your hurts. Very simple statement, but it's so profound. These 4 simple statements really describe the journey of every heart that gets wounded. And because life hurts. And the deepest wounds that we will experience, they don't come from our enemies. They come from the people closest to us. They come from a husband, a wife, a child, a pastor, a business partner, a lifelong friend. David said in Psalm 55 that if an enemy had done it, he could have endured it. But he said it like this, but it was a man like myself, my companion, my familiar friend. And that's what makes it really hurt, and hurt all the more because it comes from someone that you're close to. An enemy really can't hurt you if you think about it, because you don't put in them enough stock to really let what they say or what they think or what they do affect you that deeply. But when it's someone that's close to you, someone you've trusted, someone that you've looked up to, someone that you have put your faith in, when they hurt you, that it really does hurt. And this isn't and let me just say this right at the beginning. There's not a question of, you know, the question isn't like, will I be hurt? The question is, what are you going to do when you're hurt? So just, I mean, people say, well, I've never been hurt. Well, then you've been living in a, you've been living in a box somewhere, because if you're out amongst people, if you're out moving amongst friends and family and pastors and leaders and fellow church members and so on, then you are going to experience hurt. And the question is, what are you going to do with your hurt? Because your response determines whether that wound becomes a scar. A scar is a place where you have been wounded, but it's healed over. And then, it also can become a scab. A scab is a wound that's never healed because you just keep picking at it. So, wounds can become. I have several places where I have received stitches and have scars and can show you where I got hurt and what they did and how they fixed it and so on. It's just a scar. But a scab is something that just continues on because you just keep picking and picking and picking, and before it heals, you pick off that scab again, and it bleeds and forms another scab, and so what God wants you to do with your wounds is it should become a part of your testimony, but for so many it just becomes a prison. It becomes a place where you're held and you're bound by it because, number one, you nurse it. My wife's a nurse, and when you nurse something, you keep it alive. That's why nurses are the best. Doctors pop in, and do their thing, but nurses are with you, and what they do is keep you alive. They protect you and watch over you and make sure you're eating right and everything's functioning, if you know what I mean. And they keep people that don't need to be around you away from you. A nurse keeps something alive. And when you nurse something, you're keeping it alive. Going back to the physical wounds thing, physical wounds heal because eventually, we can remove the bandage, and then, the thing heals over. And sometimes there's not even a hint that we were injured there. A few weeks back, I had a cast on my arm, and you can't even tell that I had a cast. Now it's healed, and I removed the cast, and I'm good to go now. Although every now and then anyway, let's keep moving. And physical wounds heal, but emotional wounds often never heal because we just keep wrapping them, if you know what I mean. We just keep going around them and around them. We keep rehearsing our hurts, and then we eventually curse our hurts. So you can't nurse your hurts. Some people, when you talk to them, they really, them by their hurt, because no matter what the conversation and what you're talking about, it's always going to come back to their hurt, and that the fact that they've been a victim of someone or something. And so, don't be a person who rehearses and nurses your hurts, and we identify with them. Like, I'm the person that so-and-so betrayed and lied on, or I'm the person whose husband walked out on them, and or I'm the one who the church really didn't do right, and so on and so on. I mean, don't let your hurt become your identity, because then all you're going to do is nurse that identity, because that identity is who you've attached yourself to. Jesus never intended your wound to become your name. He never intended for you to so identify with your hurt that it's the constant center of your discussions and your thoughts, and and your and meditations. In Isaiah 43:18, the Bible says, Isaiah says, do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Now, when he says, do not remember the former things, I looked up that word remember in the Hebrew and just did a word study on it in preparation for this, because I thought, well, there's a lot of things that I have experienced that I still remember. But now listen, this is what remember means in the Hebrew here. And literally this is out of the Hebrew dictionary, quote, to mention. So, when he says do not remember the former things, he's not saying try to erase it and never let what happened to you enter your thoughts again. He's just saying don't keep talking about it. Don't keep bringing it up, to mention. Secondly, quote, it's to mark. So what happens, you mark it, you highlight it like a highlighter. And when you mark it, see, what you're doing is you're nursing it. When he says do not remember, he's saying do not mark the former things. And the third thing in the Hebrew dictionary that pertains to the word remember is to recount, to recount. And if you think about it, when you've been hurt, how many times do you tell that story? And anyone who will listen, or in any opportune moment, you begin to recount. And here's the thing, God, when he says, do not remember the former things, he's not asking us to forget history. He's just asking us not to live there. Woo-hoo-hoo. Come on, somebody. He's not asking us to forget history. He's just saying, don't mark it, don't mention it, don't recount it, don't keep bringing it alive. And you see, that's the signs that you're nursing your hurt. Number one, you're easily offended. Once you've been offended, there's an alertness to offense. See, a lot of people, if you think about it, if you've already got a sore spot, if someone hits it again, it's just gonna come out. And so, this is from the saying that hurt people. You're easily offended. And if you're easily offended, and we all deal with offenses, but if you're a person that's easily offended, it's because you're nursing a hurt. Number two is you avoid relationships. You will never let relationships go deep and go beneath the surface when you're hurt. Why? Because you don't trust anybody. You're in your cynicism and sarcasm. It's like, it'll just be a matter of time before they hurt me too. So you avoid relationships because in your mind, the way to avoid hurt is avoid people that bring the hurt. But folks, that just doesn't work. You can't avoid relationships. If you're a husband, you're a husband. And well, I can fix that. Really? I mean, why, by what? Opening another can of hurt? And so you avoid relationships. Number three is you stop trusting people. Hurt people will not trust people. And because you're in your mind, they're just like everybody else. When are they gonna show their true color? When's their real motive gonna come out? Because you don't trust people because you're hurt. It's a terrible place to live when you don't trust people and you always think the worst of people. And finally, you stop expecting good things. Hurt people have a really hard time expecting the goodness of God in the land of the living, because your mindset becomes, nothing ever good will ever happens. Nothing ever really works out for me. Those are all words from hurt people. And then what happens is that hurt begins to define your future, because the goodness of God is built around faith, and faith is the expectation of God's will and God's goodness being manifested in your life. Faith is believing. It's believing the best. It's believing for the good. It's believing for the manifestation of God. But hurt people have a hard time expecting any good thing. And when it does come, they go, wonder how long this will last. I mean, they always have a way of undermining it and talking themselves out of it. And number two, I want to talk briefly is about how we rehearse our hurts. You know, this is when things begin to accelerate in our hurt, is when we begin to rehearse it. And what we do is we start replaying conversations, and we tell other people, here's how the conversation went. Whether it's a true or factual depiction of it, it doesn't matter, because it's how we see it and it's how we perceived it. Even if the person didn't really mean to hurt you, but it hurts you, and in your eyes, then they meant to hurt you. And so you just replay the argument. You start replaying and imagining, come on now, imagining what I should have said. Here's what I should have done. You reimagine it, and you start arming yourself for the next time. You see, and that's a very dangerous thing, because that's faith in the negative. It's faith that there's going to be a next time. How about if we had faith that in our relationships we're going to grow, and there will be less opportunities to be hurt? But we just keep rehearsing it. We tell the story again and again and again. And we just keep rehearsing it. We reopen it. And every time you rehearse it, every time you reopen it, you give it a little more life. I remember this in my life and experience when I was working in a church, and I got really hurt by the senior leader of the church. And I was an under shepherd, third, probably what you'd call the third man on the totem pole. And I was fine. I loved it. But what happened was,